It's me, Bets Golden. Today I am coming at you with a alcohol lift ink, which is a new product to me. I believe I first saw this demonstrated on Justine Hoovie's channel. She got it, I think, a couple months ago, but like I said yesterday, Hobby Lobby is having a 40% off sale off of everything Tim Holtz, and I'm like, I think I want to try that now. So it was, I think it was like $3 or $4. It was ridiculously decent for his stuff. And this is the card that one of the cards I made last night with it in a couple different techniques using this this color scheme, which is raisin, a mixidant of gold, red pepper, and sunshine yellow. And then I also tried out the little mini archival inks. Now, these are actually all new from what I can gather, and these were on sale as well. Had they not been on 40% off, I don't know if I would have got them. Regular price on them was $12. I think that ended me at about $7 per four. And you know, that's less than $2 a little pad. Now, I like the black archival ink. Every time I use Ranger, this is what I go to. And I didn't know that you could use it with alcohol ink, so I wanted to try that in addition to this, and I actually ended up stamping these images with the it was the ground espresso is the background, and I didn't put my foam mat down, so I had like a empty spot back here where it didn't stamp. So I threw on this cowboy, and I believe these are by Susie Stamps. The background stamp is by Viva Las Vegas. Threw on this cowboy using the black suit on top of it. I just thought it turned out super duper cute. And then I used some beacon adhesive to put the title down. And I use the lift technique around the edges. It's like a broken chain. So I want to go ahead. I did a couple samples, a couple different color families, and I thought I would go ahead and just share this with you. There are some things that I learned as I was doing this technique. I'm going to share with you the products that I use. This isn't a sponsored or affiliated by any means video. This is all just me having fun and just sharing with you what I learned and the stuff that I like. And something I want to state is I've always loved the Stazon ink, and I really honestly now I don't know the difference other than the brand. Hello, Carol. I think that was Carol that popped on from was that South Carolina? I just saw it. It's hard for me always to see because I have to look up on my camera. But the Stazon ink is by Imagine, and I've always loved Stazon, and I've never ever associated archival ink by Ranger with Stazon. I thought that they did different things, but now after playing with both of them, you guys, I really think that you could do this whole technique if you just have Stazon with your Stazon. It works just the same from what I can tell. So I by no means think that you should run out and buy a whole bunch of archival ink. If you do have a black Stazon pad that's good and you like it, then just stick with it. And I like Stazon because it smells really good. It smells like almonds. It smells so good. I am a complete stamp pad sniffer when it comes to this stuff, you guys. It's amazing. So if you don't have the new archival ink and you have Stazon, this is going to work for you, I promise. All right, so I'm going to use this simply because these are the new colors, and I do want to play with it. And you know what? If you can get these, one of the nice things is there is a really, you know, it fits in this tin, which is super nice to take with me or with you or wherever, and they're small. And so that is good. So for me, I will use both. I like both. I'll probably always use the archival ink when I'm using Ranger stuff and then Stazon for other stuff. I don't know. I'm just weird like that. I don't know. I can't explain it. So the first thing that you want to do when you're doing the alcohol lift ink is you want to lay out your ink on a piece of glossy paper. And I'm using 3 different surfaces today. I'm using it actually from this pack. It's alcohol ink surface, and I'm going to use the gloss, the matte, and the foil cardstock to lay this down, just so you can so you can see. The first one I'm going to do is this. This is called the matte one, even though it's glossy, but on the back it is a matte surface. So what I like to do is I like to take my alcohol blending solution first and go ahead and lay that out because it allows my ink to kind of mesh better on my pad. And I'm going to be laying out Sunshine. I always give it a really nice shake first. I did put some gold mixidant in on it. I don't know if I'm going to do that this time. So we're going to kind of recreate this card. Well, probably not the Happy Trails because then I have to pull out paper. So anyway, and so I'm just going to open these up, and I always lay my lighter color out first after I put some blending solution on my pad. So I'm just going to be generous with this. Now, you guys, I have had, I'm embarrassed to say, a lot of this alcohol ink has been in my stash for probably 10 years. So the names on it may have changed, but I do have some newer ones. The Sunshine is a newer one. The Red Pepper is kind of a newer one. And I start off with 5 of the lightest, 4 of the medium, and then 3 of the darker is kind of what I go with. And then I'm just going to lay this out onto my glossy paper. This doesn't really work usually on traditional cardstock, so you are going to need to have glossy paper, and if you're unaware of what to use, then you definitely always stick with the brand and what the brand says to use until you kind of learn how it interacts. All right, so I've used it on a couple different glossy stocks and it works pretty good. Now we have to let this dry before we can actually lift the color. I'm going to show you what I lifted the color on this one right here. I'm going to actually use a little bit of a different stamp because what I noticed is this stamp is like a broken chain fence stamp, and you can't really see it very well right here. I don't know. I guess you can, but it's so subtle. I want something a little bit more extreme. So I'm going to use this barbed wire rubber mount stamp and see just how that does for me. All right, so I really am liking that. When I lifted the color yesterday, I did it on a craft tag, the Tim Holtz Distress craft tag. And I was more impressed with what the lifted sample looks like versus the sample that I lifted to. So this is the lifted sample, and as you can see kind of around on the edges, it did take the color up. And then I put it on a craft tag. This isn't bad, but it wasn't what I expected. So I didn't try to place the lifted image on anything white. Everything was either Distress Oxide tags or craft. So today I'm actually going to try to lift things and put them on a white bookmark. I'm thinking that these bookmarks will be better just to see how it works. And again, you want to wait until your alcohol ink is completely dry before you lift it. So I'm getting there. It's almost dry, I think. And something else you want to keep in mind when you are playing with alcohol ink or any ink that you are going to mix colors with, you want to keep in mind your color families. So this is a warm color family. It has the yellow and the red and then like the burgundy on it. So that's a warm. There's no cool tones in that, so I didn't get mud per se. So I'm going to get this one over here ready. And then once you do is you just take your alcohol ink and you just load up your stamp with it, and then you just lay it out. You take a dry, soft cloth and you rub it away. And I do see a little bit, it did come up slightly, okay? And then you take that same image and you lay it out onto your other surface. So still pretty light. Let me go ahead and try that again. I am wiping off my stamp with this. And I might do on this side, I might do these. All right, and then I just take my cloth and I rub it away. And so I'm seeing a subtle, subtle, subtle ghost image in there, but not as drastic as I want. Now that image, a little bit better. So I'm gonna actually hit this with a heat gun. Just because it feels like it's dry to touch, that doesn't mean that it is. Dry. So let's see if drying this is gonna help some. All right, and then I do want to just make sure that I clean it because I don't want to be transferring my alcohol to my alcohol lift ink pad. Okay, so let me try this again. See if I can get more up. And I'm going to try a different stamp. I'm not really seeing much in that yet. So let me see how much it pulled up over here. Yeah, it did bring up a little bit. So it's super subtle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this stamp and I'm just going to do it on this end, this broken chain stamp. And I'm going to, if you have rubber that is not, it doesn't have a cling foam on it, what you can do is you can take an acrylic block and you can buy tack and peel, and that will make it literally hold anything, including your rubber man stamps. I've had this tack and peel on this acrylic block for 16 years. So once it starts to get gummed up, I just go ahead and just run it under a little bit of cold soapy water and let it air dry, and it's totally fine again. And as you can see, it's been well loved. I got spots and everything right there. So for this one, let me go ahead and I'm going to actually apply it with, since it is not, it's a cling foam more so. It's not a cling foam. It's straight up rubber. There's no cushioning. I want to put it on my foam mat. Okay. So I'm just going to take on this end and just lay it out here. And then I'm just going to take and rub it away. And I am not seeing it like I did yesterday with this one. I'm not seeing it at all, and I'm doing the same technique. So I don't know if it's a humidity factor in my air or if it is something else, but it is lifting because there it is on the white. So let's go on to a different color scheme and a different stamp that has a little bit more depth to it than these two. And let's see if we can just pull something, you know, different from that. And what I'm going to do, perhaps, is it just needs more time to dry. So I'm going to lay out two color families on two different substrates, and then we'll come back through and go ahead and try to lift that color from there. In the meantime, I want to take this off and set it aside. We'll put this up here. So the next color family that I'm going to use is actually going to be the blue color family, which is going to be Stream, Mushroom, and then the Pitch Black. And I'm going to lay that out on this mirrored cardstock, which I love. It is so much fun. And I'm going to use for my stamp on the next two this barbed wire stamp, which is super cool. This is by Viva Las Vegas. They had a sale last week of everything 40% off in their store. And so I totally took advantage of that. So I'm going to go ahead and just lay this color out. Then I'll lay out the purples, because you have to do purples separately, or else you will get you know, mud. Purple, as Diane Reevely states, is the color of sin, because it turns everything to mud. And if mud is what you're looking for, sometimes I'm looking for mud. That's okay. But right now I'm not really. So I am using my Tim Holtz handle with a little bit of foam up here. And I need my alcohol blending solution just to get this color moving. And this foam handle up here, I need to get a new one, because this is like the last time I think I can use this. Okay, so the first color I'm going to put down is going to be Mushroom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The next color I'm putting down is going to be Stream. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the last color I'm putting down is going to be Pitch Black. 1, 2, 3. All right. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and just lay this out. I really like this mirrored one. I think it's kind of awesome. And then we'll move on and do the purple, and then we'll come back and try to lift the ink. I just think it needs to set up. Maybe that's the problem. It is getting ready to rain here, and the back does say that it needs to be dry. The back of the packaging says that it does need to be dry. So I don't know. I'll show you my samples on this one as well. So I'm loving that right now. That is so pretty. All right, so again, these were my cool colors. And so now let's go ahead and mix up our purple sample little panel. All right. And I'm going to be doing that on the glossy stock. And so with purple, you only want to mix it with blue or red. You don't want to mix it with orange or yellow or green. You will get mud. So that's super important to remember. All right, so I'm going to be using Wild Plum. This is going to be my purple. Also red pepper. Shake, shake, shake. And Denim. And then I think for this one, I will go ahead and possibly throw in some Pearl Mixident. So let me get my blending solution again. And just get a couple drops of that down first. And then go ahead. Now, some people drop it directly onto their paper, which is lots of fun, but that's not necessarily the look that I'm going for right now. And again, I work And I'm going to do 5 drops of the purple because that's what I really want to radiate through. All right. And what's funny is on the matte glossy, I noticed that you would think that the glossy, it would really move a lot. It doesn't. It kind of just sits there, which was interesting to me. So the alcohol ink really reacts differently with the different substrates. And the one substrate that I thought that it would really move around and interact more is the substrate that it does least of that, which is this glossy substrate. The matte one, it does the most of, which was very odd to me. So I'm actually going to take and just drop some of my blending solution just directly on this to get it to move a little bit. And I'm going to put in some pearl mixidant as well with more blending solution. I am using a ton of blending solution on this particular substrate. So Ranger, I guess you could say, I prefer the mirrored substrate and the glossy. I don't like the glossy matte. I mean, I don't like the glossy, I like the glossy matte. And see now, look what that did just when I put down that alcohol, the blending solution, it kind of started to move it around and really lighten it up. But I was going for, if you're wanting more like a crisper type splat, then the glossy is the one. But if you want something that is not just, you know, that's more, a little bit more fluid, blends better, then you're going to want to do the mirrored, I think. All right, that's better. So that's the purples. And let me show you all of these together so you can really see the difference in the color families, because there's definitely a difference. And you just have to be mindful, you know, of keeping your warms together, your cools together, and your purples need to just kind of have, you know, they're royalty. Think of purple like royalty. They don't, you know, they don't go everywhere. They're the one in the moan. They're themselves. They don't mix well with anything. They're royalty. They don't have to. Okay, so here we go. These are the different palettes that we have out. And what I'm going to do now is let me show you my samples that I created for the purple and then also for my cool palette. So for the purple palette, I did this. And as you can see, when I originally did this, I dropped the alcohol ink on it because I thought since it was the substrate, it was going to move, and it didn't. So I went over it again, and I used this, the lifted image that I used was that broken chain stamp again. And you can kind of see it there, it's there. And then I took and I just transferred it to this image, which you cannot see. It's gone. So, which is good because I have something else I want to do with this. I mean, you can kind of see the chain up there, but it just didn't transfer as well as I had liked it. And again, that could be also because not only is this over distress oxide, it also is on a craft paper. So there's a lot of pigment that it's trying to lay on as well. So white just might be what we need to do to make this work. And then the other one I did, this one turned out being my favorite, the mirrored, the cools with the mushroom and the black and the, I think it was stream, was this. And I used this really cool bobbed wire. I love how this turned out. And then when I went to transfer it, you actually really can see the color, the lift. It did come through slightly on that. So that's cool. Something I wanted to tell you guys, when you're working with Distress Oxide, after you dry it, it has a chalky look to it. If you don't want that chalky look to it and you want a finished look to it, what you want to do is you want to take some Distress Glaze and you're going to just rub it into your paper, and then you're going to remove it with a paper towel or a soft cloth. So let me go ahead. I already have some of that done. here. So let me go ahead and just do that again so you can see. Now, Ranger and Tim Holtz were very clever with how the size of this jar. Guess what fits perfectly in here? A circle dabber. But the problem is when you use those dabbers, and they're not going to want me to say this to you because it's a sponge, it sucks up a lot of product, so you go through your product faster. So yeah, it's super convenient, but especially with this, you don't need much. So I just kind of take my finger and I literally pick up, I don't even need that much, like that much on my fingernail. And then I lay it out, and then I just go on through and I just rub it in. And it's always better to apply a little bit, and I've already done the bottom half with this, a little bit than too much. Because if you apply too much, you remove it and you can't save it. Whereas I can keep going back and forth and really, you know, have a longer life with my product. This Distress Glaze is also wonderful if you want to turn your Distress inks into permanent so they don't move anymore. I love to do that. Distress inks are my favorite. I love the way they look. I love the way that they lay. And so I use this stuff all the time when I'm done with the project and I just want it to set and I don't want it to move anymore if it gets wet. Or if I want to stamp over it, I put my Distress Glaze down and then I use a Stazon, or now it's going to be Archival, over it, and it stamps beautifully. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just rub that in even more with my towel. And that is how you take your Distress Oxides and just give them a little bit more pretty shine to them. All right, so moving on from there, let's take this one. I want to lift this and I want to put it onto this bookmark. So I'm going to use my alcohol lift ink once again, and let's see how it works. You know, this is how it did yesterday. So it turned out really cute. That's going to be a great background for a card. And so I'm just going to really smoosh this in here. Now, the alcohol lift ink, there also are little refill bottles that you can buy as well. So keep that in mind. I did not buy a refill bottle because I wasn't sure how much I was going to like it. So I didn't want to have to buy the bottle until I knew. And based on how it did today on that first sample, I'm still on the fence. I don't know about you guys, but I'm on the fence. All right, so I just laid that out. Again, there's no foam to this at all, so I did put a foam underneath of my image or my substrate, and I'm just going to press this in like you would a normal stamp. And you don't want to let it dry. You need to remove the ink, I believe, when it's still wet. Well, I know, that's what the directions said. And I did read the directions, guys. Did read them. Okay, so from here, and look, it already is lifting. Yay! I'm just going to take a portion, and look at that. Now we're seeing it. Now we're seeing it. Look at that. It just rubs it away. That is very cool. How cool. So cool, right? Okay, so that works with this. And I'm wondering if it has to do with the substrate as well. Maybe the alcohol ink absorbs too much into the other papers. I don't know. So I'm going to just transfer my, look at that. That came out beautiful. The rest of this ink over here. Oh, wow. Oh, I love it. So see, that worked nice. So I know that the cools work really well with this. So I'm going to clean off my pad, and you know what? I want to lay it on this one again. I just want to see if perhaps my issue is that it wasn't dry enough. I'm not sure if it didn't lift much because of the color combination I chose, if it needs to be something that maybe is darker. So I want to figure that out. So I hope you guys bear with me as I do this. I'm kind of on a exploration, and I really played with this last night for a good 2 hours before I decided to come on and just do this, because I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing and I wasn't giving you guys like bad advice. So anyway, oh, and I am using Stazon cleaner on this because I am removing alcohol from it, an alcohol ink. It also, Stazon also works, the cleaner, this cleaner works wonderfully with the Archival ink. So if you have this cleaner on you and you have Archival ink, there is no need to go off and buy something else. You are good to go. So I'm going to take this bookmark again, flip it over. All right, so we know what this is. That worked out really well. And I'm going to do it on the back this time. Let's just see how this does. Maybe I didn't ink my pad up enough. I don't know last time. I don't know. I haven't figured out the perfect scientific method to this yet. So I'm really adding a lot of pressure on it, which I didn't necessarily, do before. All right. All right, so let's see this time. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I mean, look at that. Look at the difference. So it just doesn't lift. This combination that I chose to do this on just doesn't lift well, and that's okay. Let's see if I got any color off, and I did, but it's really subtle compared to the other one that I had, So I think maybe we just need bolder, brighter colors. Oh no, what's going on? Am I getting fuzzy?